The massive space station called Unity Prime floated in the darkness between stars. Inside its Grand Council chamber, representatives from 100 alien species gathered. Today, they would meet with Earth's diplomatic team once again. Ambassador. Sarah Chen walked into the chamber with her team of 12 humans. She wore a simple blue suit, and her dark hair was tied back neatly. Behind her, the other diplomats carried data tablets and documents. They had prepared for this meeting for months. The council members watched the humans enter. Some whispered to each other. Others made sounds that might have been laughter in their languages. "The humans come again," said High Counselor Vex, a tall being with purple scales and 4 arms. "Always talking about peace. Always offering help. Do they never tire of being ignored?" Sarah heard the comment but did not respond. She had learned patience over her 15 years as Earth's representative. She reached the speaking platform and bowed respectfully to the council. "Honored members," Sarah began, "we come today to discuss the situation at New Haven Colony. As you know, the Zerothian Empire has claimed ownership of the planet. But New Haven has been a human settlement for 20 years. 50,000 people call it home." Commander Drax of the Zerothian Empire stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with armor that gleamed under the station lights. His species had conquered 40 star systems in the last century. "The planet belongs to Zorothia," Drax announced. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Your people settled there without proper authority. We claim it by right of strength. You have 1 cycle to evacuate, or we will remove you by force." Sarah took a deep breath. "Commander, there is no need for violence. New Haven was registered properly through the Colonial Office. We have all the documentation. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to review the records and find a solution that benefits everyone." "Ah," Drax laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound. "You humans and your documents. Your meetings. Your solutions. The galaxy does not run on paperwork, Ambassador. It runs on power, and you have none." Other council members nodded in agreement. The Zerothians were the military arm of the council. What they wanted, they usually took. Sarah's colleague, Dr. James Park, stepped forward. "In the past 50 years, Earth has provided medical technology that saved billions of lives across the galaxy. We shared our agricultural methods that ended famines on 12 worlds. We sent peacekeepers to stop 3 civil wars. We have shown you who we are through our actions," said Counselor Vex. "You have shown us that humans are soft, kind, weak. You heal instead of fight. You feed instead of conquer. You negotiate instead of take. This is why you will never be important in our galaxy." Sarah felt her team tense beside her. She knew what they were thinking. She knew what Earth's history contained. But she maintained her calm expression. "Commander Drax," she said quietly, "I ask you one final time. Please allow mediation. We can resolve this peacefully. No one needs to die." Drax walked closer to the platform. He looked down at Sarah with eyes like burning coals. "Your colony has 1 cycle. Then my fleet arrives. 300 warships, little human. What will your peace do against that?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but carried a weight that made several council members shift uncomfortably. "We have tried for 50 years to show you who we are now. We have extended friendship. We have offered assistance. We have chosen peace at every opportunity." She paused. "Please, Commander, please do not force us to show you who we were before we chose peace." For just a moment, Drax's confidence seemed to waver, but then he laughed again. "Threats? From humans? This is amusing. I look forward to teaching you a lesson, Ambassador." The council session ended. Sarah and her team gathered their materials and prepared to leave. As they walked through the corridors of Unity Prime, other species moved aside. Some pointed at the humans. Some made mocking gestures. Young diplomat Lisa Tran walked beside Sarah. "Ambassador, they don't understand, do they? They don't know our history. They don't know what humans are capable of," Sarah replied softly. "They see only what we have shown them for 50 years. They see our best side. They have never seen the other side. Will Earth authorize military action? asked Dr. Park. Sarah was quiet for a moment. That decision belongs to the World Council now. We have done everything we could here. We offered every chance for peace. She looked out a viewport at the stars. But yes, I believe the armories will open. I believe they will see what we hoped they would never have to see. Back on Earth, Sarah's report reached the World Council within hours. Emergency sessions began immediately. In Geneva, in Beijing, in New York, in Lagos. Leaders gathered with grim faces. The Secretary General of Earth spoke to the assembled representatives. For 200 years, we have locked away the weapons and strategies of our old wars. We promised ourselves we would never return to that darkness. We built a civilization based on hope, science, and cooperation. She paused, looking at the faces around her. But we also promised we would never abandon our people. New Haven is home to 50,000 citizens. 50,000 people who trusted Earth to protect them. The vote was unanimous. The seals on the archives would be broken. The old military facilities would activate. The shipyards would begin producing vessels designed for war, not exploration. As the session ended, an old admiral spoke quietly to his aide. God help us. God help the galaxy. They're about to meet humanity's other side. The side that survived because we were better at war than any species should ever be. 3 light years away, on New Haven, Governor Maria Santos looked up at the night sky. She knew the Zorathian fleet was coming. She knew Earth would respond. But she also knew that whatever happened next, the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The message was already being prepared. Soon, it would broadcast across every frequency in every language. Earth's final warning before everything changed. Tried peace. Now you'll meet the other side of humanity. Part 2. The Siege of New Haven. The warning sirens began at dawn on New Haven. Governor Maria Santos stood in the emergency command center, watching the monitors as 300 Zorothian warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system. They really brought their entire battle fleet, said Defense Coordinator Tom Jong. Staring at the screen, the red dots representing enemy ships filled the display. Like a swarm of angry insects, Maria pressed the emergency broadcast button. Her voice carried to every home, every building, every farm on the planet. This is Governor Santos. The evacuation order is now active. All civilians must proceed to the designated transport points. Remain calm. Follow the emergency procedures we practiced. We will get everyone to safety. Across New Haven, families grabbed their emergency bags. They had known this day might come. Earth's government had warned them weeks ago that the Zorathians would attack. Everyone had prepared. The transport ships began landing in cities and towns across the planet. These were massive civilian vessels, designed to carry thousands of people. Parents carried children. The elderly were helped by neighbors. Within hours, the first ships were lifting off, heading for the jump points that would take them to safety above the planet. Standing alone between New Haven and the approaching fleet was humanity's defense station. It was called Sentinel. The station looked small compared to the Zorathian armada, but it held position without moving. Commander Rebecca Walsh commanded Sentinel. She was a veteran of Earth's peacekeeping forces, a woman who had spent 20 years hoping she would never have to fight a real war. Now that war had found her, all defensive systems are online, reported her tactical officer. Weapons charged. Point defense active. We're ready, Commander. Rebecca looked at the faces of her crew. 147 men and women. They all knew what was coming. They all knew the odds. Listen to me, Rebecca said over the shipwide intercom. Down on that planet are 50,000 people. Our friends. Our families. Some of your children are down there. We're going to buy them time to evacuate. Every minute we hold this position is another minute for them to escape. She paused, then continued. The Zorothians think we're weak. They think we'll run, but they don't know who we really are. They never studied Earth's history. They never learned what humans do when protecting their homes. On the surface, the evacuation continued. Maria watched the transport count rise. 10,000 evacuated. 20,000, but it was too slow. The Zorathians were approaching fast. Commander Drax sat on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. He watched the human station on his screens. Just one small station. He had 300 warships. This would be over quickly. Hail the station, Drax ordered. Rebecca's face appeared on his screen. She looked calm. Calm. This bothered Drax, though he would never admit it. Human Commander, Drax said. You face impossible odds. Surrender your station and evacuate the planet. I will allow you to leave with your lives. Rebecca smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Commander Drax, I have a message from Earth to broadcast first. I believe you should hear it. Before Drax could respond, Rebecca activated the transmission. It broadcast on every frequency, ensuring every ship in the system would receive it. Earth's message was simple. We tried peace. Now, you'll meet the other side of humanity. Rebecca's smile widened. That message is for you, Commander. Consider it a history lesson. Now, let me teach you why humans chose peace in the first place. Because we got too good at war, Drax roared in anger. All ships, attack. Destroy that station. The Zorathian fleet surged forward. Weapons charged. Missiles launched. It looked like a wave of fire descending on Sentinel, but something unexpected happened. Sentinel's defensive systems came online. Technology that Earth had kept hidden activated. Kinetic barriers appeared, barriers that could calculate incoming fire trajectories and shift positions in microseconds. Missiles exploded harmlessly against the shields. Energy weapons dissipated into space. Point defense, fire, Rebecca commanded. Sentinel's weapon systems opened up. These were not the simple lasers used by most galactic species. These were weapons designed by a species that had fought 2 world wars with chemical weapons, nuclear bombs, and strategies refined through 10,000 years of conflict. Railguns fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. Each slug could punch through Zorathian shields like paper. Missile pods launched swarms of smart weapons that could dodge enemy fire and hunt multiple targets. The first wave of Zorathian ships hit Sentinel's defensive zone. 20 ships exploded in the first minute. The Zorathians had never faced point defense this accurate. They had never encountered weapons this deadly. They're pulling back, shouted the tactical officer. Regrouping, Rebecca corrected. They'll try a different approach. All crews, prepare for sustained combat. Engineering, I need those shields at maximum. Down on New Haven, Maria watched the battle on the command center screens. Sentinel was holding. The station was heavily outnumbered, but it was fighting with a ferocity that shocked the Zorathians. How long can they last? Asked Tom. Long enough, Maria replied. We've evacuated 35,000 people. Just 15,000 more? Just a few more hours. Commander Drax could not believe what he was seeing. One human station was holding off his entire fleet. 20 of his ships were destroyed. 40 more were damaged. This was not possible. Use the heavy cruisers, Drax ordered. Concentrate fire on one section of their shields. Overwhelm them. The Zorathian fleet reorganized. The largest warships moved to the front. They began firing in coordinated volleys, all targeting the same point on Sentinel's defenses. Slowly, the human shields began to fail. Shield generators 3 and 5 are down, reported Rebecca's engineer. Hull breaches on decks 12 and 15. We're taking damage, Commander. Rebecca knew they could not win. That was never the plan. The plan was to delay, to buy time. How many civilians are left on the surface? She asked. 8,000, Commander. The last transports are boarding now, and we hold for 30 more minutes, Rebecca said firmly. No matter what. The battle became desperate. Sentinel shields collapsed completely. Zorathian weapons tore into the station's hull. Sections depressurized. Crew members died at their posts. But the station kept fighting. Rebecca walked through the damaged corridors, helping wounded crew members, coordinating repairs, directing fire. Her uniform was torn and bloody, but her voice remained steady. All remaining civilians are away, reported the communication officer. The last transport just jumped to safety. Rebecca nodded. She activated the ship-wide channel one final time. Sentinel crew, this is the commander. We did it. Every civilian is safe. You are all heroes. It has been my honor to serve with you. She turned to her tactical officer. Set self-destruct. Authorization Walsh Zaven Melfa. We're not giving them the satisfaction of capturing this station, and we're taking as many of them with us as possible. The tactical officer's hands shook as he entered the codes. Self-destruct, armed commander. 3 minutes. Rebecca pointed Sentinel directly at the center of the Zerothian fleet. She activated the engines, pushing the damaged station forward at full speed. Drax saw the station moving toward his ships. He realized what the humans were doing. All ships scatter. They're going to ram us. But it was too late. Sentinel exploded in a massive ball of fire and energy. The explosion destroyed 15 more Zerothian ships. 20 others were heavily damaged. When the light faded, Sentinel was gone. Commander Rebecca Walsh and her crew of 147 were gone, but 50,000 civilians lived, and the message had been sent. The last transmission from Sentinel reached Earth. It was Rebecca's final words. The old humans died in their wars. What's coming for you now are their children, and we remember every lesson our ancestors taught us. Commander Drax looked at the debris where Sentinel had been. For the first time, he felt something he had never experienced before when facing an enemy. Fear. Earth's response was already on its way. And the galaxy was about to learn a terrible truth. Humanity had not chosen peace because they could not fight. They had chosen peace because they were too good at it. Part 3. The armories opened. The news of Sentinel's destruction reached Earth within hours. Images of the battle played on every screen across the planet. People watched in silence as Commander Walsh and her crew made their final stand. When it ended, when the explosion faded, something changed in humanity's collective spirit. In Geneva, the World Council convened an emergency session. Secretary General Amara Okafor stood before the assembled representatives. The chamber was filled with leaders from every nation on Earth. They all knew what decision had to be made. Members of the council, Amara began. For 200 years, we have worked to become better than we were. We ended wars on Earth. We achieved global peace. We chose exploration over conquest. Science over weapons. Hope over fear. She pressed a button on her podium. Images appeared on the screens behind her. Ancient images from Earth's history. Images of war. But our ancestors purchased that peace with terrible knowledge. They learned how to destroy cities in seconds. They created weapons that could end all life on a planet. They developed strategies that turned entire continents into battlefields. And when they finally achieved peace, they sealed all of that away in the archives. Mara paused, her voice growing heavy. Now the Zorathians have forced our hand. They killed 147 of our people. They attacked our colony. They rejected every offer of peace. The question before us is simple. Do we open the archives? Do we show the galaxy what humanity was capable of before we chose a different path? The vote began. Nation by nation, the representatives cast their decision. Every single vote was the same. Yes, deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Massive doors began to open for the first time in 2 centuries. The archives had been sealed after Earth's last war, when humanity finally united and promised to never fight each other again. Inside these chambers, every weapon, every strategy, every dark innovation from 10,000 years of human conflict had been preserved, not as tools to use, but as reminders of what to never become again. Now, those seals were breaking. Engineers entered the archives with authorization codes that had been passed down through generations. They walked through chambers filled with weapons technology, railgun specifications, plasma cannon designs, ship configurations built for one purpose, destroying other ships as efficiently as possible. Dr. Sarah Mitchell led the engineering team. She was 70 years old, a woman who had spent her entire career designing peaceful exploration vessels. Now she stood before the archive database, accessing files that made her hands shake. These are designs from the last war, she said to her team. Ships called dreadnoughts. carriers that could launch 1,000 strike craft, hunter-killer submarines that operated in space using stealth technology the galaxy has never seen. Her assistant, a young man named Kevin, looked at the specifications. "Doctor, these ships. They are designed to survive direct hits from nuclear weapons. The armor alone is 10 times thicker than anything the Zorathians have." "Yes," Sarah replied quietly. "Our ancestors built these to fight each other. Human weapons designed to kill humans. The Zorathians think they're strong. They have no idea what real human military engineering looks like." Around the planet, hidden facilities came online. Shipyards that had been maintained but never used suddenly roared to life. Construction drones activated. Fabrication systems that could build an entire warship in weeks began their work. In Nevada, massive underground factory opened. Inside, workers who had only read about military manufacturing in history books now began producing weapons, missiles, armor plating, shield generators using technology Earth had never shared with the galaxy. Admiral James Crawford stood in the command center of Earth's newly activated Defense Fleet headquarters. He was 83 years old, officially retired for 20 years, but he had been called back because he was one of the few people alive who had trained under officers who remembered the last war. "Admiral," said his operations officer, "the first dreadnought will be ready in 3 weeks. We're naming it Verdun." James nodded. "Done. Where humans fought for 300 days straight. Where we proved we could endure anything." "Good. What else?" "The second will be Midway. Third is Stalingrad. Fourth is Thermopylae. We're naming them all after battles where humans refused to surrender against impossible odds." "Perfect," James said. "Let the Zorathians look up those names. Let them learn what they mean. Let them understand what humanity is capable of when we fight to protect our people." Recruitment centers opened across Earth. Millions volunteered. Most were civilians who had lived their entire lives in peace. But they all had one thing in common. Somewhere in their family history, in their ancestry, were soldiers, warriors, people who had fought and died in humanity's long journey to peace. Training facilities activated. Retired veterans, men and women in their 70s and 80s, came forward to teach the new generation. They taught tactics that no other species in the galaxy knew: guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, combined arms doctrine, tank warfare adapted for space combat. "You need to understand something," said Colonel Maria Torres to a group of new recruits. She was 75, a veteran of Earth's last peacekeeping mission. "The galaxy thinks in terms of fleet battles. Big ships facing big ships. They don't understand asymmetric warfare. They don't know what happens when a smaller force uses intelligence and strategy to defeat a larger one." She pulled up historical files on her screen. "Your great-grandparents studied Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, Rommel, Zhukov, Sherman, strategists who understood that war is not just about weapons. It's about breaking the enemy's will to fight. It's about attacking supply lines, infrastructure, morale. That's what we're going to teach you." The training was intense. 16 hours a day, physical conditioning, weapons practice, strategic simulations. The recruits learned how to operate in hostile environments, how to survive, how to fight even when outnumbered. In China, special forces units activated. These were soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. Now they would board ships and conduct operations the galaxy had never imagined: infiltration, sabotage, intelligence gathering in Africa. Drone warfare specialists prepared swarms of autonomous combat drones. Small, fast, nearly impossible to track, each carrying enough firepower to disable a Zorathian cruiser in South America. Cyber warfare teams began developing computer viruses designed to infiltrate alien networks. They would attack communications, navigation, weapons systems. The Zorathians would find their own technology turning against them. 6 weeks after the vote, the first human war fleet was ready. 12 dreadnoughts, 20 cruisers, 40 destroyers, 100 support vessels, and one massive carrier that could launch 5,000 strike craft. Admiral Crawford stood on the bridge of the flagship, newly christened Unzindomitable. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, young faces mixed with old. Scientists who had become soldiers, teachers who had become warriors, all united by a single purpose. "Sir," said his communication officer, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They're demanding we stand down. They say our military buildup violates galactic law." James smiled grimly. "Send a reply. Tell them we tried following galactic law. We tried diplomacy. We tried peace for 50 years. The Zerothians answered with violence. Now they'll face the consequences." He turned to his navigator. "Set course for Zorothian space. Maximum speed. Destination, sir. Their homeworld. We're going to end this war before it truly begins. We're going to show them what happens when you wake sleeping giants." The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, on Earth, millions watched the ships disappear into the darkness of space. Some prayed, some wept. All hoped that this show of force would end the war quickly, Ambassador. Sarah Chen stood in her office at Earth's United Nations building. She watched the fleet depart on her screen. She had spent 15 years building friendships across the galaxy. Now, all of that was shattered. Her assistant entered. "Ambassador, you have a priority message from Commander Drax. He's requesting immediate negotiations." Sarah's expression hardened. "Tell Commander Drax that Earth tried to negotiate. He laughed at us. He called us weak. Now he can deal with Admiral Crawford. Military matters are no longer my concern." She turned back to the window, looking up at the stars. "God forgive us," she whispered. "We're about to show the galaxy what we really are, and I fear they'll never look at us the same way again." In the darkness between stars, the human fleet raced toward its destination. Each ship carried weapons that could level cities. Each crew had been trained in tactics developed through 10,000 years of warfare. Each captain had studied Earth's history and learned a simple lesson. When humanity fought, it fought to win, completely, utterly, without mercy for those who threatened their people. The Zerothian Empire was about to receive an education. One written in fire and steel. One that would echo across the galaxy for generations. The archives had opened. The sleeping giant had awakened. And the other side of humanity was coming. Part 4. The Cost of Arrogance. First battle happened at the edge of Zorthian space, near a system called Karak Prime. Commander Drax had positioned a defensive fleet there, expecting the humans to approach cautiously. He was confident. His forces controlled the high ground, had prepared defensive positions, and outnumbered the human fleet 2-1. He was about to learn his first lesson about human warfare. Admiral Crawford's fleet did not approach cautiously. They did not request negotiations. They did not broadcast warnings. They simply arrived and immediately attacked with a ferocity that shocked the Zerothian defenders. "All ships execute attack pattern Delta 7, Crawford ordered calmly. "Target their command vessels first. Communications second. Break their ability to coordinate." The human fleet split into smaller groups. This confused the Zorathians. Every species in the galaxy fought with unified formations. Humans fought differently. They attacked from multiple angles simultaneously. Forcing the enemy to divide their attention, the dreadnought Verdun led one group. Its railguns fired metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The first Zorothian cruiser never saw what hit it. The slug punched through its shields, through its armor, through its entire hull, and exited the other side. The ship split in half. The carrier midway launched its strike craft. Not slow, lumbering bombers like other species used. These were fast, agile fighters that moved in coordinated swarms. They overwhelmed Zerothian point defenses through sheer numbers and speed. 500 strike craft hit the Zerothian flagship from every direction at once. "This is impossible," shouted Drax from his command center. "How can they coordinate so many ships? How are they moving like this?" His tactical officer looked terrified. "Sir, They're using tactics we've never encountered. They're attacking our weak points. They know exactly where our shield generators are located, where our weapon systems are positioned. It's like they can see inside our ships. Right. They could. Human intelligence had spent weeks analyzing every broadcast from Zorathian ships. Every technical manual the Zorathians had carelessly transmitted over unencrypted channels. Every design flaw that came from a species that had never faced a truly determined enemy. The battle lasted for hours. When it ended, the Zorothian defensive fleet was destroyed. 37 ships were complete losses. 20 more were crippled. The human fleet had lost only 2 destroyers, but those 2 ships meant something to humanity. 400 people died. Admiral Crawford attended every virtual memorial service. He looked at every face, remembered every name. This was what Earth's leaders had feared. The cost of war was not just in ships and weapons, but in lives. The war spread across multiple systems. Human forces struck at Zorathian supply lines. They targeted fuel depots, ammunition factories, repair stations, not with massive fleets, but with small teams of Special Forces soldiers who infiltrated enemy facilities in the Tello system. A team of 20 human commandos boarded a Zorothian supply station. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, using stealth technology that made them nearly invisible. Within hours, it sabotaged the station's fusion reactors and escaped before anyone realized they were there. The station exploded, destroying millions of tons of supplies meant for Zorothian war fleets. On the planet Vexor, human cyber warfare specialists unleashed a computer virus into the Zorothian military network. The virus was elegant and terrible. It did not shut down systems. Instead, it altered sensor readings by tiny amounts. Navigation coordinates became slightly wrong. Weapons targeting became slightly inaccurate. Communications became slightly garbled. Tiny errors. But in space combat, tiny errors meant death. Zorathian ships began firing on each other, their sensors telling them they were shooting at human vessels. Fleets became lost, their navigation systems directing them to the wrong coordinates. Commanders received false orders, their communication systems compromised. "This is not war," screamed Drax during an emergency council with his generals. "This is madness. They're not fighting honorably. They're attacking everything. Our supplies, our communications, our infrastructure." His chief strategist, a veteran of 30 campaigns, looked defeated. "Commander, I have studied their history. This is exactly how humans fight. They learned thousands of years ago that destroying an enemy's ability to wage war is just as important as defeating their military forces. Perhaps more important, and we will strike at their infrastructure too." Drax shouted. But when Zorathian forces tried to raid human supply lines, they found nothing. Human logistics vessels traveled in small groups, constantly moving, never staying in one location. When Zorathian ships tried to intercept them, human escorts appeared from nowhere and destroyed the attackers. The turning point came at the Battle of Ashara Nebula. Admiral Crawford had drawn the main Zorothian fleet into the nebula by pretending to retreat. Commander Drax, thinking he had the humans trapped, brought 400 ships into the clouded space where sensors did not work properly. Then, Crawford showed him what human strategists called shock and awe. The human fleet had positioned mines throughout the nebula weeks earlier, not simple, explosive mines. These were smart weapons that could identify enemy ships and remain hidden until the perfect moment. When Drax's fleet reached the center of the nebula, 300 mines activated simultaneously. The explosions lit up space like a new sun. 50 Zorathian ships were destroyed in the first minute. Another 100 were damaged and helpless. Then the human fleet attacked from all sides. They had been waiting in the outer edges of the nebula. Their sensors not blinded, because they knew the exact composition of the clouds and could compensate for it. The Zorothians tried to fight back, but they were disorganized, damaged, and unable to coordinate. Human ships moved through the nebula like hunters who knew every inch of the territory. They struck hard, then vanished into the clouds before the Zorathians could return fire. 6 hours later, it was over. The Zorathian fleet was shattered. Only 70 ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured, but humanity was suffering too. The price of victory was high. The dreadnought Thermopylae was destroyed with all hands. 800 crew members died. The cruiser Marathon was crippled and had to be abandoned. 200 more dead. In the medical bays of the human fleet, doctors worked desperately to save wounded soldiers. Commander Lisa Park, who had once been Ambassador Chen's assistant, now served as a combat medic. She moved through the rows of injured crew members, treating burns, broken bones, radiation exposure. A young pilot grabbed her hand. He was barely 20 years old, his leg mangled from an escape pod crash. "Doc, did we win?" "Please tell me we won." Lisa squeezed his hand. "Yes, we won. You flew brilliantly. Now rest. We're getting you home." After he slept, Lisa stepped into a private room and cried. She had spent years believing humanity had evolved beyond violence. Now she wore a military uniform and treated wounds caused by weapons designed to kill. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. Admiral Crawford felt the same weight. He sat alone in his quarters after the Battle of Ashara Nebula, looking at the casualty reports. 3,000 human deaths since the war began. 3,000 faces he would never forget. His communication officer interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Zorathian Empire. Commander Drax is requesting negotiations." Crawford was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Tell Commander Drax I will meet with him, but he will come to us. On our terms. In 3 days at the coordinates I provide. Should we inform Ambassador Chen, sir?" "Yes, this is her area of expertise." Military force brought them to the table. Diplomacy will end this war. Across the galaxy, species watched the war in horror. The humans were not just winning. They were dominating. Every tactical innovation the Zorothians tried, humans had a counter for. Every strategy, every weapon, every approach was met with something more effective. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. They had created this situation by allowing the Belunk Zorathians to attack New Haven. Now they watched in fear as humanity demonstrated military capabilities beyond anything they had imagined. "We must intervene," said Counselor Vex. "The humans are becoming too powerful." "Intervene how?" asked another counselor. "They have not violated any laws. They are defending their territory. And frankly, I do not wish to face human military forces." "Have you seen what they did at Ashara Nebula?" In his command center, Drax prepared for the negotiation meeting. He had lost half his fleet. His empire was in chaos. His allies were abandoning him, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. He thought about Ambassador Chen's warnings, about her calm statement that humanity had tried to show the galaxy who they were, and that the Zorathians should not force them to show who they had been. Now he understood. The humans had been trying to save the galaxy from themselves. They had chosen peace, not from weakness, but from the terrible knowledge of what they were capable of in war. Drax had laughed at them, mocked them, called them weak. He would never make that mistake again. Part 5. The choice the meeting took place aboard the UN's Indomitable, Admiral Crawford's flagship. The chamber was simple, with a long table and chairs. No decorations, no symbols of power, just a room where decisions would be made that would shape the future of the galaxy. "Commander," Drax arrived with 5 of his officers. They wore ceremonial armor, but no weapons. They had been searched thoroughly before boarding. The Zorothian commander looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. He looked tired, defeated. Across the table sat Admiral Crawford, Ambassador Sarah Chen, and 3 other Earth representatives. Sarah had arrived on a fast courier ship 2 days earlier. She wore her diplomatic uniform, the same blue suit she had worn at Unity Prime months ago. But everything else had changed. "Commander Drax," Sarah began formally, "you requested this negotiation. We are here to listen." Drax's voice was hoarse. "Ambassador Chen, Admiral Crawford. I come to offer the Zorathian Empire's surrender. The word hung in the air. Surrender. A concept the Zorathians had forced on dozens of other species. Now they spoke it themselves. We acknowledge our mistake, Drax continued. We attacked New Haven without justification. We rejected your offers of peace. We mocked your diplomatic efforts. We were wrong. Sarah nodded slowly. Yes, Commander. You were wrong. But acknowledgement is not enough. Before we discuss terms, you need to understand something about humanity that you clearly never learned. She stood and walked to a view screen. With a gesture, she brought up images. Historical images from Earth, images of war, cities destroyed, millions dead, weapons that could end civilizations. This is what humanity was before we chose peace, Sarah said quietly. For 10,000 years, we fought each other. We developed weapons that could destroy planets. We created strategies so terrible that they still haunt us. We were very, very good at war, Commander. Too good, she showed more images. Then images of Earth now. Green cities, space stations, hospitals and schools, ships exploring the galaxy. 200 years ago, we decided to be something different. We sealed away our weapons. We chose science over conquest, healing over destruction, peace over war. Not because we were weak, Commander, but because we finally understood the true cost of violence. Sarah turned back to Drax. You forced us to open those seals again. You made us become what we had worked so hard not to be. Do you understand what that means? Drax's hands trembled slightly. I watched your forces destroy half my fleet. I saw tactics and weapons beyond anything I imagined possible. I learned too late that humanity's kindness was not weakness. It was choice. And we made you abandon that choice. Yes, Admiral Crawford spoke for the first time. His voice was hard. We lost 3,000 people in this war. 3,000 human beings who died because you would not accept peace. Their blood is on your hands, Commander, and on the hands of everyone who supported your attack on New Haven. One of Drax's officers spoke up nervously. What will happen to us? Will you conquer the Zorothian Empire? Will you take revenge? Sarah exchanged glances with Admiral Crawford. This was the critical moment. The moment where humanity would show whether they had truly changed or whether the war had pulled them back into their old patterns. No, Sarah said firmly. We will not conquer you. We will not seek revenge. But there will be consequences. She laid out Earth's terms. First, the Zorothian Empire would pay full reparations to New Haven survivors. Every family that lost someone would be compensated. The colony would be rebuilt, and Zorothian forces would help with the reconstruction. Second, Commander Drax and his senior officers who authorized the attack would stand trial for war crimes. Not on Earth and not on Zorathia, but before a neutral tribunal of Galactic Council judges. They would face justice, not vengeance. Third, the Zorathian military would be reduced by half. The ships would be decommissioned peacefully, with human observers ensuring no weapons were hidden away. This would prevent future aggression. Fourth, Zorathia would establish diplomatic relations with Earth and participate in a mutual defense treaty. If either species was attacked in the future, they would defend each other. You are offering us peace, Drax said, surprised. After everything we did? Yes, Sarah replied, because that is who we are. That is who we chose to be. War does not change our fundamental nature. It only reminds us why we hate it so much. But, Admiral Crawford added, his tone cold, let me be absolutely clear about one thing. This is the only chance. If Zorathia or any other species threatens human colonies again, we will not show mercy a second time. We have proven we can fight. We have proven we can win. We would prefer not to, but we will if necessary. Negotiations continued for 3 days. Details were discussed. Treaties were drafted. The Galactic Council sent representatives to witness the final signing. When the treaty was complete, Drax signed first. His hand shook as he wrote his name. Then Sarah signed for Earth. Then Admiral Crawford. Then representatives from the council. It was done. The war was over. News spread across the galaxy within hours. Reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated the peace. Others feared humanity's military power. Everyone understood that the galaxy had changed forever. On Earth, memorial services were held for the 3,000 who died. In every city, people gathered to honor the fallen. Admiral Crawford attended dozens of services. He looked at the faces of grieving families and promised them their loved ones had not died in vain. "We fought this war so that future generations would not have to," he told one mother who lost her son. "We showed the galaxy that humanity will defend its people. But we also showed that we can win a war and still choose peace afterward. Your son helped teach the galaxy that lesson." The archives were sealed again. The warships were not destroyed, but they were placed in reserve. Earth's leaders decided to maintain a military force, but a smaller one. They'd learned that peace required both the desire for it and the ability to defend it. Sarah Chen returned to Unity Prime. For the first time since the war began, the council chamber felt different now. When she entered, every species present stood in respect. Not from fear, but from genuine recognition. High Counselor Vex approached her privately before the session began. "Ambassador Chen, I owe you an apology. I called humans weak. I mocked your offers of peace. I was a fool." Sarah studied his face. "Counselor, the tragedy is not that you underestimated us. The tragedy is that we had to prove ourselves through violence. We spent 50 years trying to show you who we are through our actions of peace. That should have been enough." "You are right," Vex admitted. "The Council has learned a difficult lesson. We judged you by our own standards. We assumed kindness meant inability to fight. We were wrong about humanity. Perhaps we are wrong about many things." The council session began. Changes were proposed. New rules about diplomacy before military action. Protections for colonies. Reforms to how the council made decisions. The war had shaken the entire galactic political system. Months passed. New Haven was rebuilt. The colony grew larger than before, with survivors from Sentinel honored as heroes. A memorial was built listing every name of those who died defending the planet. Commander. Rebecca Walsh's statue stood in the center of the colony's main square. She was depicted standing on Sentinel's bridge, calm and determined. The inscription read, "She bought time with her life so that others could live. Remember her courage? On Zorathia, changes happened too." Drax and his officers were tried and found guilty of war crimes. They were sentenced to prison, but humanely. They were not tortured or executed. They were simply removed from power and made to face what they had done. A new Zorothian government formed. One committed to peaceful cooperation. They sent ambassadors to Earth with gifts and apologies. Slowly, carefully, a new relationship began to form. Admiral Crawford retired for the second time. He returned to his home on the coast of Maine, where he spent his days watching the ocean. But he gave regular lectures at Earth's military academies, teaching new officers about the responsibility that came with power. War is easy to start and hard to stop. He told one class of young cadets, "Victory in battle is meaningless if you lose your humanity in the process. We won the war against Zorathia. But our real victory was that we remained who we are. We fought when necessary, and we stopped when it was over. Never forget that." Sarah Chen continued her work as Earth's ambassador, but now other species listened. They asked for her advice. They sought human mediation in their disputes. Earth's diplomatic corps grew larger, helping to resolve conflicts across the galaxy. One day, 5 years after the war, Sarah stood at a viewing platform on Unity Prime. She looked out at the stars. Thinking about everything that had happened, a young diplomat joined her. "Ambassador, I have a question. Do you think the war was worth it? We lost 3,000 people. We had to become warriors again. Was it worth it?" Sarah was quiet for a long time. "I think about that question every day. Those 3,000 people, Commander Walsh and her crew, every soldier who died, every family that grieved, The answer is complicated. She turned to face the young diplomat. The war should never have happened. If the council had listened, if the Zorathians had chosen peace, none of it was necessary. But once it started, we had no choice. We had to defend our people. And yes, in that sense, it was worth it. We've protected 50,000 civilians. We proved that kindness is not weakness. We showed the galaxy that humanity will always defend those who cannot defend themselves. And now? The young diplomat asked. Now we work harder than ever for peace, Sarah replied. We use the respect we earn to build bridges. We help other species resolve their conflicts. We prove that our military power was a last resort, not a first choice. That is our responsibility. That is the burden of being strong, using strength wisely. On Earth, children learned about the war in their history classes. They learned about the cost of violence. They learned about the importance of peace. And they learned about the times when good people had to fight to protect what mattered most. In the archives, deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the weapons and strategies of humanity's past were sealed once more. Engineers checked the systems regularly, ensuring they would work if ever needed again. But everyone hoped that day would never come. Admiral Crawford's favorite quote was engraved above the archive entrance. Words written by an ancient human philosopher: "The purpose of preparing for war is to prevent it. The purpose of strength is to protect peace. Never forget which one matters more." 10 years after the war, representatives from the Zorathian Empire visited New Haven. They came to help dedicate a new park, a place where Zorathian and human children could play together. The park was named Unity Gardens. At the dedication ceremony, a Zorathian diplomat spoke. 10 years ago, my people made a terrible mistake. We saw kindness and thought we saw weakness. We rejected peace and chose violence. Humanity taught us a lesson we will never forget. They showed us that true strength is choosing peace when you have the power to choose war. The human governor of New Haven responded, "We do not celebrate what happened 10 years ago. We mourn those we lost. But we can celebrate what came after. We can celebrate the choice to build rather than destroy, to forgive rather than hate, to move forward together rather than remain enemies." The ceremony ended with children from both species planting a tree together. A simple act. Hands covered in soil, working together to create life instead of destroying it, and across the galaxy on a million worlds. People of countless species looked up at the stars and remembered. They remembered that humanity had tried peace first. They remembered that when forced to fight, humanity had proven unstoppable. But most importantly, they remembered that humanity had chosen to stop fighting when victory was achieved. That choice, more than any weapon or battle, defined what it meant to be human. Sarachin's final report to Earth's world council ended with these words: "We showed the galaxy our other side, the side we hoped they would never see. Now we must show them why we chose to hide that side in the first place. We must prove that peace is not weakness, but wisdom. That is our mission for the next 100 years. That is how we honor those who died." The message Earth had sent was clear. They tried peace. They met the other side of humanity. And now, having seen both, the galaxy chose peace too, because that was always the lesson humanity wanted to teach. Violence is easy. Peace is hard. And choosing peace, especially when you have the power to choose otherwise, that is true strength. That is what it means to be human.